Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the garage. The nice, warm, heated garage. I actually just shut the heater over there in the corner off so I could talk to you guys, but I've had it blasted in here for like an hour before I got out here. It's nice and toasty. I could probably take my sweatshirt off if I really wanted to. You know, finally getting back in the garage and out from that cold January weather. You guys gave me a little ribbon. I misspoke the other day and said it was July. It's certainly not July. It is freezing out there. But for July here in Pennsylvania, honestly, it's been pretty mild, so I can't complain too much. But we're working on Caitlin, working on Veronica, but it's time to get back to the 4-link project on the drag truck. More specifically, our anti-roll bar there on the table. But before we get into tonight's project with the anti-roll bar, we need to talk about our 4-link setup. So previously we had talked about where we were setting our brackets, and I kind of decided, screw everything I kind of heard, and I put the bracket actually up further on the frame to give us some more ground clearance. I made that decision just kind of like figuring, you know what, it's adjustable, we can adjust it and all that. But I got a phone call. So my buddy Mike, MD Diesel Fab on the Instagram, definitely go check him out. Does some solid work. But he hit me up and said, hey man, you might want to rethink what you're doing. So he says, you're kind of getting yourself into a whole world of unknowns and all this kind of stuff. And he talked me through it all. I'm not even going to try and relay that knowledge to you guys just because I don't have 100% comprehension of it. But everything he said made perfect sense. Told me how he does a 4-link and all that, and kind of the mistakes we made along the way. You know, I've been moving the frame all around. When we move the axle out, lift the frame up, move the axle out, put the frame back down and up again. And I've just kind of been moving things all around rather than keeping the frame where it should be, so that way it's one less variable, you know, that we have to deal with. So we were talking about this front bracket. That's kind of what he spurred him on to call me, and he said, you know, you might want to get that thing lower so you can have that lower bar about 2 degrees, I think is what he recommended to me. So I was trying to think, you know, we got everything all welded in solid and all that. And like I said, I trust his opinion more than my just kind of guessing. So what I did was I followed his advice, but I did it in a little bit different way than I had talked to him about. So what we actually did, if you look at the truck, our front bracket is now sitting much lower than it was. It's about, I want to say 7 inches or so. So our bar on the bottom hole here and the bottom hole here is actually sitting at 2 degrees pointing up. Before we had it on the bottom hole here and the third bolt hole up to sit at 0 degrees. So how I accomplished this without cutting that all off? Well, we lowered the truck. So if you stand back and look at the truck to the garage floor, I don't know if you guys can tell, the cab still does have a slight rake up to the rear, which is fine. It had a rake before and I was happy with it, but I think this I'll be even happier with, and we will get our adjustability out of our 4-link like we want. So in doing that, lowering this down, I had to lower our jacks in the front here, and then I had to recenter the axle. I did all this, forgot about our panhard bar, so then that was all out of whack, so I had to center the frame back up on the axle. Yeah, I spent a whole night out here just trying to get this thing back where it was, but lower. So everything is where it should be. Our axle is where it needs to be. Our panhard bar has the frame centered on the axle. Everything's looking good. Another thing Mike had said, he said, you know, it looked in the video like I had a little bit too much heim joint, you know, thread sticking out. He said if you got too much thread sticking out, it can kind of get loose in there and beat things up. So with lowering the truck, and I think we lowered the very rear of the frame about 2 inches. Maybe it was a little more than that. I can't remember the numbers, but got our bracket down, got all, you know, everything where we want it. And when we centered the axle up, we were able to decrease the amount of thread we had showing on our heim joints. Looking at it and trying things out, I think we will be fine on the amount of thread we have there. I think we will still have plenty of adjustability because whatever we have here is actually doubled with the back hind joint. So anyway, guys, I know that's a kind of a lot of information there real quick about what we did, but basically lowered the truck about 2 inches in the back, got our axle back centered up, and that brought our bracket down here on the front of our forelink, so we have the full adjustability that we need. So Mike, thanks, I appreciate it. I hope you approve of my method of getting there. Now guys, Mike, like I said, does some fabrication work, does roll cages, stuff like that. His work blows what I've done out of the water. I mean, his welding is phenomenal. Just check him out on the Instagram. If you are somewhere within the like Cecil County Dragway area, definitely hit him up if you have any cage work or like a forelink. Honestly, if I wasn't going to take this project on myself, that would be my first phone call, would be to get a hold of him and see if he would be able to take care of it for us. But that's not usually what I do, but maybe you guys would be interested in forelinking your truck or putting a cage in or something. Mike could definitely help you out. Like I said, his work speaks for itself. Go check him out on the Instagram, and maybe he's got an opening. You can slide in, get a nice quality cage built. So with all that, that brings us to our anti-roll bar install. So this is a kit produced by Competition Engineering. I got it through the guys at Firepunk when I got the forelink kit. What this anti-roll bar actually does is it allows the rear end to plant kind of evenly. So when you see like a car, especially a two-wheel drive car, a four-wheel drive, I don't feel it's going to be as needed. But if you see a car launch and you see it kind of twist up, the anti-roll bar is so you can preload like one side or the other and try and keep things square and planted, or at least that's my understanding of it. So we were doing the forelink. I figured, why not? You know, let's do this right, get all the stuff we need and all that. So what our anti-roll bar consists of here is we have a bearing for either side of the frame. We have our actual bar itself. These are the arms that come off of the bar. And then we have kind of like a mini forelink bar here, and then tabs to weld to our axle. It's a pretty straightforward kind of setup. These are actually our coilover brackets for our forelink kit. We're going to get to that later. I still haven't figured out the whole coilover thing because I don't know the weight of the truck and yada yada yada. We're not going to do that tonight. So anyway, that's kind of our anti-roll bar, what it is. It's not very complicated. It's just going to take some time, make sure we get it right and all that. So we got to trim our bar, get kind of our bearings and everything all mocked up. I did do a little kind of pre-assembly here. Got our hind joints all located with like 5 threads sticking out with our brackets for the axle. I also welded the this hind joint threaded portion into these tubes, and we have these little spline guys that will go on our roll bar and actually get welded in our arms. So we'll get to working on this and see if we can get this anti-roll bar in this evening. So our anti-roll bar is all tacked up and ready. We have our axle brackets tacked in place. I tacked this bracket just temporarily to hold it, just because my clamps and how I was figuring out how to do it, and I only got one of these big magnets. I also had this 2x3 square tube in there just as like, kind of like a little work platform, but this one's attached to the magnet right now. Our little gear drives or whatever for the anti-roll bar, these arms, that's tacked in on either side. All our angles are kind of set. Really with the anti-roll bar at the bottom, with these brackets right at the bottom of the frame, how they fall, I didn't have to shorten these rods at all. As you can see, we're on a little bit of an angle, but I think that's fine. But yeah, I mean, because if I drop these down lower, then this wouldn't be at the angle they tell you to put it at. They tell you to put this at 14.5 degrees, because this is a 4.5 degree angle. So that, and I guess they recommend it to be 10 degrees down, so that comes to 14.5. But all that's set up, so now we got to pull all of it out, and we got to finish weld our brackets on either side. Our lower rod ends need finish welded, and then we can we got to weld these, and they tell you to be careful so that you don't screw up the teeth, so you can get these arms off, which I don't know why you need to pull them off, but that's what they tell you to do. We'll try and do that, but we'll get everything welded up, and then we'll get back in here, and we'll have to get our brackets tacked in place and get everything welded back up. Also, I have to realign this, because as you can see, it moves, but we'll have to score a line on our rod. That way we can cut it down so this thing can actually come in and out when these brackets are fully welded in. So a lot of kind of tedious setup work, just trying to check the angles. If I had 2 angle finders, it'd be a little easier, but it is what it is. Everything is set and even, so we should be good. We'll just have to, really the critical thing here, other than our welding, is just to have this bar cut at the right length so we can get it in and out. So yeah, we'll move forward and get to doing some welding. All right, so I've actually made the decision. We're not going to finish this tonight. We're not going to weld this up here in the garage. I'm going to take it to work and do it during my lunch break, because you got to weld these splines onto the anti-roll bar shaft, and as you can see, there's not really much material there, so I'm going to do it where I have a proper welding table and a pedal and all that, so I can try and get a good weld on there, because they tell you to make it below the teeth, so that way you can get the billet arms on and off, which I don't really know why you need to really worry about that, because with cutting them down, we should have enough room by unbolting our bearings if we have to and whatnot to get it out. But that's what it says. We'll give it a shot. I'm definitely going to leave the arms on when I weld it, just in case I do screw it up, but it is what it is. But we can do this somewhere that's not here in the garage, because, well, I'm not really set up for stuff like this. So really, once we get that done and get our anti-roll bar in tomorrow, hopefully, or whenever, this 4-link project will be about done. The only real thing we got left is our shock brackets. For our coilovers, we're going to be putting some coilovers in here, which I will need another bar for brackets and all that. So what I will probably do temporarily, just so I can have the truck to where I can move it if I need it or whatnot, we'll probably just do something temporary, because one thing with ordering coilovers and whatnot, we need to know what the truck weighs. And over the last year, we have no idea what the truck weighs. So with me in it before, it was 5,700 pounds, I think it was, with how we had it all cut up. And now it should be significantly less, between our leaf springs and our 4-link, and our cage. I mean, our cage is a little bit of weight, but we cut all the sheet metal out of the place, or out of the inside and all that. So I honestly have no idea what this thing weighs, and really to get the right coil on the coilovers, we should know what our weight bias is. We should know if this thing say weighs 5,000 pounds, is there 3,000 on the front axle, 2,000 on the rear axle? What is the weight bias, so we can get that all sorted out and correct. Also, I gotta get some more tubes, so that's the other thing I did forget about that. We have to gusset our 4-link setup. We got to put some bars going, kind of making some triangles all over the place. So we do have a little bit more work to this, but the basic structure of the 4-link setup and anti-roll bar is done. I mean, the 4-link itself is actually done. So we're moving right along. We got other projects in the works. We got some stuff coming. We're just going to keep moving on this thing. I've got some decisions to make. I'm really debating whether we should cut out a piece of the floor and go for that X brace in between, so maybe we can get this thing 25/6 certed this year. But then again, for that cert to even matter, the truck has to weigh under 5,000 pounds. It has to weigh in order for that cert to matter, and I don't know where we're at. I would like to think we're going to be close to that, but I have no idea. And we might be losing a little bit more weight yet to come. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. We'll get this anti-roll bar in here shortly, and just keep moving on with these projects and start getting the truck back together. Not that it's completely apart, but we got to get this thing ready. Racing season is fast approaching, and what happened last year is not going to happen again this year. Mark my words. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video. Man, it's late and it's a school night. Get out in your garage, get the wrenching on your truck.